Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, I'm Neil, the Adventurous Investor, and on this channel I talk all things investing, personal finance, anything in that sort of nature. If you enjoyed today's video guys, hit that like button, it'd be much appreciated, and if you want to see some more videos like this, then hit the subscribe button below and you'll be the first to know. Today guys, I'm going to be doing a book review on the Barefoot Investor for families. This is another book, great book by Scott Papes. This book's targeted for people that are sort of just, starting out on their financial journey and they want to instill some good financial habits with their kids. I highly recommend this book. It's only like $20, Kmart, Big W, shops like that, or you can download it on Audible or places like that as well. And if you can't be asked doing that, then just watch this video and you'll get pretty much the same sort of stuff that he talks about in the book. This is all just what I've taken from the book. These aren't my own sort of personal opinions. I'll chuck in my 2 cents on some sort of areas, but generally it's all from what he says in his book, so I can't say these are my sort of things. I don't actually have kids, but I have a lot of friends and family at the moment that have kids. I'm sort of getting to the age where everyone seems to be having kids. So I thought, you guys get a bit of value from this. Anyway, so let's kick it off. Start of the book, he sort of talks about pocket money a lot. He drags this out for probably a bit longer than he needs to, but talks about splurge, smile, give jars, which he carries over from his original book where he's talking more about buckets, but now he's tying it to jam jars. Obviously, splurge being, when you're allocating your money, this is for your kids to splurge on lollies or crap, or whatever they want to spend their money on. And then the smile jar is more like a savings sort of jar where if they're saving for like a bigger toy of some sort or something. And then the give jar is more for charitable sort of donations at the local food banks or at Christmas to kids that, buying a present or something for a child in need, or those sort of, charitable sort of donations is the give jar, obviously. And then he sort of says, Bob's list, keep it real basic and simple, stick it on the fridge, have a quick, easy to follow list, maybe a tick sheet or something, just, basic sort of stuff, clear the table, set the table, empty the rubbish, take the bins out, mow the lawns, wash the car, all the basic sort of stuff everyone sort of knows about. And yeah, like I said, don't over-engineer it, keep it quite simple. That way, your kids aren't going to lose interest in it and you're not going to lose interest in it. And he said, get into the habit of trying paying pocket money every week, either on the Saturday or Sunday, end of the week sort of thing, and make sure you've got a few coins in your pocket to chuck in the jam jars sort of thing. So that's what he sort of starts the whole book off with, drags that out for a couple of chapters. Then he goes into the Barefoot 10, the 10 different sort of habits that you need to instill in your children over their whole life that they're at home with you. First one being, he says, open a high interest account. This is pretty much a no-brainer. Get on it as soon as you can. And this is for, any money that you've got from grandparents for birthdays and that sort of thing, rather than just sort of disappearing, going into the system. Set up a high interest account and put the money in there. Okay, so that's by the stage, when they come time to leave home or whatnot, they might have a good sort of $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in there. That's slowly acquired over the last 18 years or so, or whatever age they leave home. And then, you can, but don't tell them about this. This is just sort of, or you can, it's sort of, put it there. So that's the first one off the list. Second is buy and sell something second hand. Okay, this is when the kids get a little bit older. You're saying, sort of that 5, 7, maybe even 10 years old sort of thing, that sort of age, to show some appreciation about the value of money and how much things actually cost. He was saying a lot of children don't actually know how much things cost, so this will give them a bit more awareness around how much things actually cost. So get them to find an old toilet in the back of the closet they haven't used for a while, get them to sell that off, and do a bit of research on it, put it up online, Trade Me or Facebook or whatever, eBay, just to try and sell it off. And what money they generate from that, then they can go out and buy another toy and just sort of get used to this, rather than just that want, buying more toys. Buy a toy and they play with it for a week and then go sit in the back of the cupboard and then want the next toy. So yeah, it's trying to get some more awareness around that. Okay, third on the list, he talks about teaching your kids how to cook, okay? This is, once again, another basic sort of step as well, I felt. But like he brought up some valid points. And he said, especially when your kids get a bit older, maybe around that sort of 10, 11, 12 years age, get them to cook the family dinner for that evening. Get them set a budget, $20, $30 or something. Keep it quite reasonable and cheap. And get them down the supermarket, get them to research a recipe and whatnot, and cook dinner for the family a couple of times a week, and get used to them, so they've got a couple of good recipes in their back pocket, so when they finally leave home, they've got a couple of good solid cheap recipes, so they're not just living off 2-minute noodles and getting scurvy or something. So that was third on the list. Fourth on the list, he talks about volunteering in the local community hall or down the salvos, or with church groups or anything along those sort of lines, just to try and get or food banks and that, to get your kids out involved in the community, to show that there's other kids out there that maybe don't have it as good as what you guys have got it, or just to give them a bit of awareness just around, what else is out there. Number 5 on the list, this one was pretty cool, I thought, was So get all your family bills, like all your utility bills, this is, like your power, your gas, your water, all that sort of thing. Lay it out on the table, and then get your kids to, to have a bit of a look at it all, and so they can see how much actually power costs. Because I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid, it was always, and I'm sure everybody got this, was flick the lights off. You think we're made of power? Like, we're not a bloody power factory or something. And he talks about that in the book as well. So and when you're a kid, you're sort of like yeah whatever, and then you wander off and you leave the light on and go about doing your thing. But so yeah, he's trying to get some attention around how much bills actually cost. So lay it out on the table. And then put it back to your kids to say, look, this is how much our bills cost. Get onto a website, do some research, and try and save some money on our bills. There's a lot of different energy providers, especially in Australia and New Zealand, and there's quite some big variances between the prices, what they're charging for power. So there's a very good website in Australia called energymadeeasy.gov.au. Get on there, check it out. I'll put the link down in the description below so you can check that out. And that sort of just goes over all the different power companies to see where the cheapest providers are. And then you can have a bit of an incentive for your kids as well. You're saying like, if they save a couple $100 on the power, which is they probably will, then say, oh look, for every $100 you save, I'll give you $10 and top up their pocket money for the week. Give them some more incentive to actually get involved with it all, rather than just like yeah, and then go back to playing PlayStation or something. So I thought that was a pretty cool one, and I wasn't aware of this, energymadeeasy.gov.au. So yeah, it's quite a cool website. Get on there, check that out. Okay, so number 6 on the list, he talks about credit cards and how bad they are, and what to avoid, basically to avoid not getting a credit card, and just showing how they the negative impacts of a credit card. Especially when you're young, you maybe don't fully understand what you're doing. Get a credit card with a 10 grand limit on it, and all of a sudden tap 6 months later you've got 10 grand, 20% interest, and that could just carry around. You can carry that around for maybe 10-20 years just trying to pay that one off. So he sort of really tries to highlight this in the book, by showing the negative impacts that a credit card can have, and he's trying to tell people to stay away from them. Look, I personally have a credit card, and if you manage a credit card well and pay it off every month religiously, and not pay any interest on it, then they do have some benefits. We get travel insurance through our credit card, which is actually quite a good travel insurance. We've had to use it in the past when my wife broke her back in Japan, and luckily we had this travel insurance through this credit card, and that paid for the surgery that she needed. So there is some benefits to having credit cards, but he's just basically trying to turn people off from having credit cards. So that's number 6 on the list. Number 7 on the list, he talks about getting a part-time job. This is obviously when your kids start to around that 14, 15, 16 years of age. Get them out there in the world, and obviously try and keep it pretty close to home. More than likely you're going to have to drop them off and pick them up, so you want to sort of keep it pretty close. You don't have to be driving 40 k's up the road, so keep it close as you can, and really sort of push and promote them into getting a part-time job outside of you just giving them pocket money. And then he sort of goes through a whole lot of different places where they Macca's, KFC, and writes a little script, get them to write a resume. He has quite a good template resume in there as well, which I highly recommend is looking at that as well, because that's a good sort of basic resume that anyone talk about experience that your kids might have through the school, like what football team or what rugby team they're on, and any charitable sort of stuff they've done, and because they don't have any work experience, and get in there with a resume. It's obviously going to put your kids a bit higher but than the other kids that are trying to get a job at the time as well. Show up on time obviously is always a pretty crucial one. So yeah, that was quite a cool one, I thought. Good getting a part-time job. Number 8 on the list is get a good glowing reference from that job, which they can then carry on into doing whatever proper jobs they actually want to do later in life. Just get one solid glowing reference, and just basic sort of common knowledge sort of stuff. Turning up to work on time, everything's squared away, nice clean iron uniforms, being that cheerful sort of bloke at work that everyone wants to be around. Don't be negative, and don't be shy to get stuck in, roll the sleeves up and get stuck into any shit job, whether that's bloody clean the toilets or I don't know, just get stuck into it basically, which is all good work ethic, sort of common knowledge sort of stuff, I feel. So when they're at this job, help them in a way in setting them up with a super as well. Obviously the employer will help with this as well. So open up an ultra low cost, high growth super fund, or if you're in New Zealand, this will be with a KiwiSaver, or wherever you're in the world. Just make sure they get focus on it as being low cost, minimal fees, high growth. They've got their whole life ahead of them to wear the ups and downs of the market, but generally the market's going up. So yeah, in the power of compounding interest, this is such a crucial thing, which a lot of not even young people, a lot of people just sort of it's super, who cares? It's not really, and they just sort of forget about it. But he really tries to harp on here, and I think with good reason. There's a lot of importance around this, especially the sooner you start on this compounding interest, especially if you can start this when you're 15 years of age. He has an example actually in the book where he says, if you start at 15 years of age to the age of 25, and every year you put $5,000, whether it into a super fund or a KiwiSaver fund or some sort of a fund, so all up giving you 25 grand, and you just let that sit there. Averagely, you're going to get around that sort of 8, 9, 10%. I think he said 10% from memory. If you hold that in there and you don't allocate anything more after the age of 25, the power of compounding interest, you're going to have 2.7 million by the time you knock off at 65. So that just sort of shows, and he has a little graph there, so really trying to highlight it to, this is how much it makes a difference to make sure that it's ultra low cost, super high growth. And then he goes on, recommends Host Plus if you're in Australia. The fees are minimal, 0.13%, and sort of try and put them into a fund that's 50% Oz, 50% US. And if you're in New Zealand, I recommend Simplicity. That's KiwiSaver that I use in New Zealand. Check out my other video on Simplicity if you want to know a bit more about Simplicity, but same sort of thing, low fees, and high growth is what I'm currently invested in with my super in New Zealand with Simplicity. At number 10, he says, get your kids to open up a high interest account for saving for a home, okay? Especially if they start this at 15 or 16 years of age. They're probably not thinking about buying a house they want to live in, but eventually down the line, when it gets a bit later in their late 20s, early 30s, they'll want to buy a house. And if they've had this instilled from a young age that they're saving for this house, okay, then it's just every time they open up their app on the phone or check the online banking, they'll see that, home savings account. So he sort of stresses, get them started on this at a young age, okay? And have this in a high interest account, not attached to the market, because obviously the ups and downs of the market, depending on what time they want to buy a property, but this could drop off by 30, 40, 50% even. So just keep it in a high interest account, which you're going to be hard pushed to find at the moment. But and then he says, look, depending on how well you are off as well, you could say, look, for every dollar you put in, I'll put in 10 cents or something, or for every $100 I'll put in $10 or whatever like that, just to also encourage them as well. And if you want to help them out as well, getting them on that property ladder, as it seems to be getting further and further away, especially for the younger generation, when the average house price is, depending where you are, but you could anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million just to get you on the ladder sort of thing. It's pretty unattainable for younger people to think, they can't see that. And then they don't want to live some rural sort of back area. They want to be living in the cities and that sort of thing. So he just says get them started on that journey, planting that seed to start saving for that house. So that pretty much wraps up his top 10 barefoot steps for raising good financial savvy little children. And then he sort of, the last bit of the book there, he sort of, hand this book to your kids just to have them a little, and he sort of writes a little section there for the kids, stressing about the power of compounding interest, especially when it comes to the super fund, and sort of just highlights how much the super funds are skimming off everyone's super. And it's 31 billion a year in Australia. There's the big super funds that you all know about. They're skimming off the top, so he tries to highlight that and just really shows the power of, if they set it up into a low cost, high growth fund, just the power of, time and compounding interest over their whole entire working life, what that can actually do and how much they can actually achieve there. So that was pretty cool. Then he also talks about the education system a little bit, only touches on it briefly, and saying, look, a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in this book, they don't teach at school for whatever reason, and this whole false misconception about, study hard, go to school, work hard, study, so then you can get into a good uni, and then you're in that good uni and you're knocking that over, and then once you've completed that, then you can go into some high-paying job and you're in some big corporate job, and so you're nice and safe, and then you'll be set for life sort of thing. And he's just trying to sort of change people's conception of that, that sort of cannot be reality a lot of the time, and it's almost the most unsafe thing you can do. It's been so reliant on that one paycheck, and as if this year's showing everyone, if you're so reliant on that one paycheck and you've got no other sort of streams of income, or you don't have a good sort of rainy day sort of buffer there saved up, how hard things can come very quickly when you maybe you lose your job or your hours cut back. So just tries to get people more aware of that sort of situation. And then he sort of wrapped the book up in a nice sort of fashion, saying, as parents, it can be bloody tough. I'm not a parent, but I've seen my friends and family what they go through, and I know how tough I think I know how tough it could be. And he says, you can screw up a lot of things along the way, but if you get a couple of small things right, you're going to set yourself up and your children up for a good financial life ahead for them. And then he sort of wraps it up, so when they leave home, they're going to be solid, good base foundational financial skills that they can take forward throughout their entire life. So they won't have the struggles, ideally, because they've got these good sort of foundational steps, which they can grow on when they move out of home and they start doing their own thing, they've got this solid foundation to work off. So that's it, guys. If you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button, it'd be much appreciated. If you want to see some more videos like this, hit the subscribe button below and you're first to know when the next video drops. And if you've got any questions around this or anything that you guys do in your financial family's life, drop it in the comments below. I'd love to know a bit more. See if you guys have got any other tips or tricks. And like I said, I still highly recommend you read the book as well. It goes into a lot more detail on a lot more of this sort of stuff. I've sort of only just basically skimmed over it all. But yeah, that's it for today, guys. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. See ya.